Introduction. Okay. All right, welcome everyone to the December 13th, 2022 regular meeting of the Town of Waterford Planning and Zoning Commission. This is a web-based meeting, so we are operating under the following procedures. This meeting is being audio and video recorded. The video recording will be available within 24 hours and will be posted on the Town of Waterford's Planning Department website. To ensure good sound quality, the default rule for this meeting is that everyone will remain on mute unless they are speaking. If an attendee creates an audio or video disruption, the Zoom moderator may place them on mute or remove them from the meeting if the disruption continues. We will not use a chat feature in this meeting. We appreciate your attendance at this meeting. Should you have any questions about the process, you may call our staff at 860-444-5813 between the hours of 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Friday. With that, I turn it back over to the chair.
Great, thank you, Mark. It looks like we have a full complement tonight, except for is Tim in tonight?
Yes,
Both Tims?
both Tims are, yes.
Okay, good. So we have everyone, no need for an alternate. Is Bert here anyway?
He is not.
Okay, so we have a full complement of panel members. How about a motion for the approval of the November 29th, 2022 meeting minutes, item number 2?
This is Tim Bleasdale. I'll move that we approve those minutes.
Thanks, Tim. Is there a second to that? I'll second it. Motion made and seconded to approve the November 29th, 2022 meeting minutes. Signify by saying aye.
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 Okay, 5-0. Item number 3, application receipt. Do we have any applications tonight, Mark?
We don't have any.
Okay. Item number 4, application review, PL 2217, request of Adams Builders LLC, owner and applicant for a site plan approval for a multifamily development at 48 Great Neck Road, PDD-2 zone in accordance with sections 22 and 30.2 of the zoning regulations and as shown on plans entitled Plan Design District 2, PDD-2 Ivy Hill Village, action required by 11923. Mr. Wren, are you taking charge of this?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah,
If I can have that ability again, Mark, to share the screen, that would be a good start. Good evening, everyone. My name is Joe Wren. I'm a professional engineer representing the applicant, Skip and Gordy Adams, and both Skip and Gordy are on the call this evening. As you recall, we were before you several months ago, creating the PDD-2 zone, which you approved, and then changing the zone of this property, which was formerly industrial property, to the PDD-2. So all that was done previously. Since then, we've developed the plans and the drainage. We went through the wetlands process and we have our approval from inland wetlands. And earlier this evening at 4 o'clock, we met with the design review board and we got their approval as well to proceed to this P&Z meeting. I did speak with Mark regarding some minor comments on the plan set, and those are minor in nature, generally dealing mostly with the roadway being a private roadway, the utilities being private utility systems and so forth, and we will make those minor revisions as a condition of your decision. Bringing the plans up, if I can share my screen here.
Mr. Wren, while you're doing that, was there any recommendations by the design review board this afternoon? No.
Nothing really. The house renderings that we provided that are now part of the PDD-2 regulations and your zoning regulations are the same ones that we have and the same ones that we showed them. And they generally were in favor of the architecture. They had a couple questions regarding building materials and elevations of the other sides of the buildings, which were addressed by the applicant, and they didn't really have any negative things or outstanding questions as far as I remember.
Great. Okay, screen's yours.
So yes, you can see the screen here. You recall the layout as part of the previous processes through P and Z. You asked for a conceptual layout. And it was very, very similar to this. We have the main roadway going back from Great Neck Road, which is here, the left side of your screen and the west side of the property, with the main road going into a loop. The main road crosses a wetland area. We have a 20-foot wide, 20-foot span bridge there to get over the wetlands from edge to edge, and that's all been approved, as I said earlier. Previously, with other plans that you've seen, there were a few residences over here. I think we did have some community type features in this location, which we have changed, and I'll show you that as I go through the plan. We have 40 total units, 10 of which are duplex style units, so you can see the units matched together in certain locations spread throughout. And the other ones are standalone single family. They're generally around 1,200 square feet with a one-car garage, very similar to what we discussed with you previously. The duplexes were added to diversify the housing portfolio available. And that was a comment early on made by the town planner, may have come up in one of our planning and zoning meetings. So they added in a duplex style. And we'll show you those in the renderings as well. So we have the single family standalones and then the duplex style all throughout. There are 20 and 20, I believe, how the split. So 10 two duplexes, which are 20 units, and then 20 standalone units. As discussed with you regarding an affordability component, the applicant feels that being in the 300s and 400s range, that the entire development is in the affordable range for the town for new construction. But there are 10% or 4 of the units hatched here. These units 27, 28, and 35, 36 here and here that will meet the state guidelines for affordability for New London County and the Waterford area. So those 4 will be either rented or sold, however the applicant chooses to do it within over the next 40 years with those affordability guidelines. So again, that's these 2 units and these 2 units. As far as community amenities, some things that we've added based on comments from your board and from town staff and others over the last several months. We've incorporated a sidewalk, a crosswalk across Great Neck Road from the existing sidewalk on the westerly side of Great Neck Road to a new sidewalk that starts here, comes into the roadway, runs along the main access road up to this point here with a crosswalk to get across the street. And there's another crosswalk here, and if you look closely, you can see this trail all the way around the development, through the woods, around the drainage areas, by the wetlands. And that is a 6-foot walking path, 6-foot wide walking path, approximately a 1/3 mile in length, just with a wood chip base. It's intended to minimize clearing. We're going around trees, there's some interesting boulders out there, glacial erratics going around those, not disturbing the ground really in any way, cutting some brush that needs to be cut, adding a safe layer of wood chips down to create that path. Along that path, there would be pet waste stations for walking your pet. There would be benches for resting, taking in vistas and so forth along the entire length of that trail. And as mentioned earlier, that's fully interconnected into the sidewalk. So one could walk this path, walk out along the road, on a sidewalk, across the street into the town sidewalk system. So we feel that that's a really nice amenity. Also, we have the post and beam pavilion here just for gathering. And that's right next to this common parking area. As far as parking goes, every unit has a one-car garage. And every unit has the capacity to have at least one car in their driveway. Some driveways, like over here, a couple of these over here are a little longer, but for the most part, they all have the capacity to hold at least one car in front of their garage plus the garage itself. So site-wide with 40 units, that would be 80 spaces, including all those. We did add a few more based on some feedback that we received from your commission. We have 3 down at this end, guest parking areas. We have 5 here for a total of 8. And then we have an additional 4 at the eastern end. So we have 12 additional parking spaces. There is no parking on the street signed as such to allow larger vehicles or emergency vehicles to utilize the 20-foot wide pavement. And your largest ladder truck, you can see the little diagram here. And if you follow along the road, you can see the lines. It follows the street and it can handle all of the curves, staying within the pavement, not going outside of the pavement. And that's going either way. So when the fire apparatus comes in, if it needs to go this way or it needs to go this way or completely around the loop, it can safely do so and stay within that 20-foot wide pavement area. These will all be private utilities. We have water and sewer, so there are no septic systems. We have hydrants. We discussed this with the fire marshal, and there's a hydrant at this end, another one along the main road, actually right here at the intersection in that one, and then there's one in the proximity of these units as well. As far as stormwater, we have reduced the pavement width, as I had mentioned, to 20 feet from a standard of 26 or 28 feet for a town road, 20 feet to reduce impervious areas. We also have designed and implemented these stormwater quality basins, several of them throughout the site. Here are 2 here for those 5 units. Then we have a couple of smaller ones for the stormwater system in the road for water quality. Again, smaller ones here and here for the roadway stormwater systems, and then larger stormwater management basins for the majority of the development here. And we were able to achieve no net increase in runoff from the site and meet all the water quality guidelines per your Conservation Commission regulations and the state guidelines. The Adams plan to reuse a lot of the materials that are on site. Many laurel bushes that are there can be easily replanted per our wetland scientist. Some of the on-site soils will be reused for a lot of this, so we don't plan on hauling a lot of excess soil or anything from the site. We plan on reusing it as much as possible on site and reducing waste as much as possible. All the homes are compact homes, and they will all be fully energy efficient. Again, Gordy and Skip are on the call, and they could discuss with you more about the construction of the homes, but they all will be fully energy efficient as well. So not only relatively affordable prices from the get-go for new construction to get in, but also relatively inexpensive to own, low maintenance and low energy costs. This will be a homeowners or a condominium association, whichever they choose. So each unit will have a 40th interest in the overall land. There will be an association that will maintain all of the utilities, the roadways, winter maintenance, and so forth. Last time we spoke with you, there was a good question brought up about trash collection. And since then, obviously thinking more about that, there would be rollaway trash barrels. The homeowners association would hire one trash company, so you don't have several out there on different days. Very valid point that you guys brought up. It would be one single trash hauling company that would come on one day. Everybody would bring their barrels to the street as we do in our neighborhoods. They would be emptied and then brought back to the homes that evening. So there wouldn't be multiple things out there on multiple days. As far as mail collection, that was another question brought up by you previously. And in talking that through with the owner, they've decided to do individual mailboxes by the homes next to the street rather than like a community kiosk area. So individual mailboxes. I believe Skip and Gordy may have had a discussion or will have a discussion with the postmaster to figure out those details. But that is the plan right now, to have individual mailboxes. As far as landscaping, again, we're clearing the bare minimum that we need to create the development and its grading. We've preserved all the wetland areas. The only wetland fill is due to this crossing. We have located the roadway at the narrowest point to have the smallest wetland crossing, obviously for to make it financially feasible to cross the wetland, but also to minimize the amount of fill in the wetland. And we were able to do that with use of retaining walls, with spanning the wetland area of the whole 20 feet with a crossing that we have right in this area here. Skip and Gordy have decided to go with concrete footings and a metal arch span to span that whole entire width of the wetlands in that particular area. As far as other landscaping and talking to Skip and Gordy, they are going to, they have a plan to heavily landscape the site. The areas that are disturbed for construction, there are provisions in the plan by Jim Cowan, the wetland scientist, for all the wetland buffer areas and the drainage basins. But outside of those areas around the units and in the backyards and in the front yards, those areas will be landscaping. As far as those details, Gordy could give you some details on that if you're looking for more information. As far as that, I think that covers the general aspects of the site. Next, I'm going to change my screen and go to the make sure you can see this. The renderings of the homes, which again are very, very similar to what we showed early on. As part of the approval of the PDD2 zone, these are actually part of that regulation for the PDD2. So these renderings are actually incorporated into the zoning regulations. Just flipping through these, you can see very nice New England style colonial architectural design with nicely pitched gables, nicely muted colors, grays, tans, those type of colors as we go through. Nice selection of materials, architectural shingles, a nice quality vinyl siding for ease of maintenance. And the last rendering too is one of the duplex. You'll see mixed in here, again, part of the regulations, you'll see the general floor plans, very small, efficient space. And it's a really good option. The intent of this is to be a valid option for like townhome living, where you have several units attached together. This is a single family detached small structure where you have your private common space around the units with no tenants or neighbors upstairs or to the side of you other than the duplex units. The duplex units, once we get down to them, they're kind of separated in the middle by the garages. So that separates the private spaces of the home as well. I'll just flip through these quickly and you can see the similarity in the architectural style, some different roof pitches and gables and dormer selections as we go through. So there's a nice mix of all the 40 units. Some will be the same. The intent is to not have two of the same houses obviously next to each other. there would be a good mix. However, that potentially could happen if the homeowner selected that option. But generally, there are enough variations here all throughout that we feel it won't look like a monotonous development as you drive through. It would be enough difference to keep it interesting. This last rendering is the duplex, as I mentioned before. You can see the garages in the middle, so separating those spaces on the ends, and very nice, handsome architecture all the way throughout. We did do a traffic study early on. We did do a marketing analysis. Those were all at different times of this application with the zone change and so forth. Those were submitted into the record. There were no major red flags with traffic. Route 213, Great Neck Road is a very wide, straight road in that area, so there are no traffic issues that are anticipated based on the traffic report. And the marketing analysis, although times seem to change monthly now with the market and inflation and everything else, but with this diversified housing type that's different for the area, there's been a lot of interest in this already, even though there's not a shovel in the ground yet. And the Adams feel that it'll be wildly successful and diversify the housing portfolio in town, consistent with the town's plan and conservation development. So with that, I'll open up if you have any questions. Me or Gordy or Skip can certainly entertain those.
Great, thank you, Mr. Wren. I just have one, I'm just curious on one question. Are those bathrooms right off the kitchen with the door right in line with the countertops? Is that
Gordy, that's your area. Gordy will respond when you there.
So we have a few different variations of floor plans. We were trying to get a first floor master bedroom. And to do that and have access to the bathroom off the first floor, right now in our preliminary designs, he has that. The one I'm looking at on my desk right now, it's off of the dining room.
Yeah, the first thing we have.
We're still working on final floor plans.
Okay, but they're not going to change from the footprint, right?
Footprints stay the same.
Okay, great. So I think it's a great project. Let's open it up to questions for anyone else. Anybody have any questions for any of the team, or does any of the team want to say anything else first?
No, I think we're all set. If you have any questions, we can answer those.
Okay, great. Anybody on the commission have any questions? Can we take down the screen, Mark? So I can see people. Thank you. Anybody have any questions? Tim, Karen, Vic?
I don't have any at this point.
Okay, thanks, Tim. How about Karen or the other Tim or Vic?
Greg, I don't have any at this point.
Okay,
I don't either.
no for Tim. Karen?
I asked most of mine when we did the original PDD, so I think I'm good at this point too.
Okay, great. Anything else you want to add, Mr. Wren?
I don't believe so, unless Gordy or Skip think I missed anything. It was very similar presentation to design review earlier, so I just had to basically repeat what I said to them. I added a few things in because of some questions that you guys brought up early on that we've incorporated into these plans. So no, I don't think there's anything more to add at this point.
Well,
Actually, Greg, I have one. Sorry.
Go ahead, Karen.
In the original plan, you had the bocce court out by the road. And sorry, it's clarinet time here. Are there any other recreational things other than the walking path, or is that it at this point?
We have the walking path that includes benches and pet way stations, and we have the concrete sidewalk on the north side of the road. I believe that was just striped early on, it was striped part of the asphalt, and the pavilion up in the center of the loop. So those are the recreational things proposed at this time.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Mr. Wren, and the team for incorporating any of the comments you had at the pre-meeting. Makes things a lot easier today. I don't think you have to add anything else, and probably have us at hello. I probably wouldn't add anything at the moment. So
Greg,
if nobody has any other questions, we can either turn it over to Mark or we can.
Greg, this is Bert. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I apologize for being late. I could not get into the Zoom meeting. I do have a couple of questions if I can, or am I not allowed?
No, go ahead.
So I was looking at the proposed setbacks for all of the units. And as I'm reading it, basically it's 30 feet on every side. When I look at all the units that are in the especially in the center, it's not clear to me that there's actually 60 feet of separation between any of these units. Am I misinterpreting what's supposed to be going on here?
Mr. Chairman, I could respond to that if you'd like.
Sure.
Okay, thanks for the comment. The setbacks are the separating distance from the property line to the unit, not between the units themselves. So if you look at on the perimeter of the property, we have this dashed line which represents the setback. 30-foot setback as implemented or incorporated into the PDD2 regulations, and no building extends past that 30-foot distance to a property line.
Okay, thank you for that. I have a second question, and this map doesn't show the topology.
This one does.
I think page 2 of 15. So on the east side of the the proposed development, there's pretty substantial hills over there, and basically on the I think the east side. Oh, you can't see what I'm pointing at. Yeah, that's the east side.
The right side is the east
yes.
side over here where my cursor is.
Right. So when I look at your circle, I see storm drains on the north and south sides. But as I interpret this, the sloping of the property basically is highest at the east and slopes down through the whole the development or proposed development. And I'm assuming that there's curbing around the roads.
Yes.
I'm just concerned that you're going to have pooling of water and sheeting of water on the east side as it comes off the slope there. And it's going to catch in that parking area for the 3 or 4 parking spaces. I'm just wondering if you really need an additional storm drain over there.
So if everyone could see my screen, along this property line here, there's a ridge. So the topo falls off to the east in this direction from the property line. And it goes toward the development on this side of that line. Basically, the property line follows right down the center of that ridge. Okay, so there's not a huge slope coming from off-site toward this property. It's only to the top of that ridge and down. Everything to the east of that property line goes to the east. You see that?
Yep.
So the only stormwater that makes it over this development is what starts on this slope. And what we have here is we have these GTD, which are grade to drain. So we have overlap. When the water comes off the slope, it grades to drain in this direction. And this was something that we reviewed with wetlands, because originally we had a swale here that carried the water all the way down to this stormwater basin. And they wanted to feed more water to this wetland here. So what we did is we took away that swale and we allowed the water, you could see these grading arrows. We allowed the water to just sheet off through the vegetated areas and the wooded areas to on its way to the wetland. So we didn't take water away from that wetland. So that handles a lot of this slope in this back area. Now on this side over here, we have something similar. You can see the grade to drain arrows. So we have grade to drain behind these units with a flat swale that comes all the way down to this basin in the northwest corner, and that grades over land into that basin. So parts of the roofs of the houses and the driveways all pitches toward the road. And then there are two catch basins here, two here, all the way down, and they discharge either to the basin or to these other water quality provisions that we have. And then the same thing on this side. So we have a high point here, right? The water goes this way to those basins, this way to these basins. Whatever accumulates between these basins and the next set gets collected here and into the basin. Same thing over here. Anything that collects in that couple 100 feet gets collected here and into the basin. And the same as you get down through this intersection, there are other basins here and here that discharge to these water quality areas. So with those sets of catch basins and that overland flow, in the very limited drainage area, watershed area that's draining to the site, we feel that we have it well covered.
So you don't think that between the units 15, 16, 17, and potentially 18, that the water is, you think that all the water is going to go basically south and not get onto the road? So it just seems like that parking area is going to be a collection point for water.
There's let me see, let me just make sure what's that. There are curves that lead to these catch basins. So right in here is a high point. Let me just go on the scroll back to the plan with the contours on it and zoom in a little bit. So we have an elevation 76 here that crosses the road, and 76 here that crosses the road. So, and then it falls off to 74 in the westerly direction, falls off to 74 in the westerly direction here. So this area is a high point in the road. So at a high point, you don't have a lot of water draining to it. Everything drains away from it.
If you look right in front of that parking area, it's 84, no question, a high point, 82, 80, 78, 76, and you're still in the parking area.
Well, these lines here, the dash lines, those are existing grades. So we're cutting those down. That's why we have these contours back here.
Okay.
So the back of these units, you can see 80, we're at 78. So there's a cut. If this is 78, this is like an 8-foot cut right here in order to get those down. So the proposed contours are the solid lines with these square labels. So we have 76, and then the high point here, if I had to guess, it might be 77 or 76 and change. It's definitely lower than these existing contours. I see what you're looking at. You're looking at all of this aiming right in this direction, but that's changing with this topography back here. In order to get these units in level, you can see they're at elevation 80. The garages are at 78. Generally about that same contour here, which is quite a bit lower than the existing ground at that location. Once we get beyond here, we're more very closely matching the existing grades. You could see 70 and 72 all the way down. It's just this eastern portion that you picked up on, where there's this rising topography back here, and we're benching into that, and we're creating this flat area for these units.
Thank you for clarifying that. I understand now that I was looking, you're right, I was looking at existing, because that really was troubling for me.
Yeah, those existing contours would be too close together for a road. The road would be too steep in that area.
Yep.
Climbing from like 76 to 84 over that short distance, we wouldn't be allowed to do that. So for road grades and then to make the units work properly, that's a large, that's a cut there. It's a 4 to 8 foot cut in that area.
I'm good. You don't have to explain anymore. You guys have clearly done your homework. I appreciate the clarification. No
Thank
more
you for the-
questions.
The question.
Thank you, Bert. So, Mark, you've given us a very thorough report. Any highlights of it or anything you want to add to it? Or see if anybody has any questions so we can move the application along?
Sure. What I'll do is just highlight the conditions. I think the findings speak for themselves.
Could you just remove the screen as well, too? Thank you.
Okay, what I want to do is just highlight 3 of the conditions on here. That's kind of important to bring up. That the first condition is that there was an affordable housing plan that was submitted, documentation that was submitted. That's currently under review by town attorney. And so the condition is that document will be approved in terms of substance and form prior to the endorsement of the plans by the chair on this. The same holds true for the conservation easement as well. It's a document that's currently under review by town attorney, and the homeowner's declaration is currently under review. All of those documents would need to be found acceptable and approvable by the town attorney relative to form and substance. So that and the fact that all the utilities and the road, all the infrastructure is private and permanently set aside in such a way that we're going to relieve the town of ever having to maintain our own any of the infrastructure. So other than that, I think we're ready to take a look at it.
Great. Mr. Wren, do you have any comments on the conditions, the proposed conditions?
I do not, and I appreciate Mark's thorough review too. Like I said earlier, there are some minor things before the plans are endorsed. We will go through and clarify the private roadways and utilities and some other things that Mark and I already discussed thoroughly last week. Other than that, I think it's a great project, and I appreciate all the time the town has taken for this. Their multi-layer process, and we really appreciate it. If there's anything more that Gordy and Skip want to add or any questions on those conditions, they certainly could chime in, but I think it's very, the conditions are advantageous and they want to comply with the affordability. So even if there are comments from the town attorney, I'm sure they'll address those and incorporate them as well.
Okay, great. Do we have anybody make a motion on the floor so we can get this open up for discussion?
Hey, this is Tim. I'll move that we approve with conditions the Ivy Hill Village multifamily development site plan application PL 22-17 for 48 Great Neck Road. And that's with the conditions 1 through 7 contained in our staff report, and as well adopting the findings 1 through 7 in that same report.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second it, Greg.
Okay, seconded by Victor. Tim, I think you got the same thing I have, because neither of us sound like ourselves.
Yeah, it's been going around.
Yeah. So motion has been made and seconded, made by Tim, seconded by Victor. Any discussion on this by anyone? Okay, I think it's a great project. Happy to act on this tonight and wish you guys luck on it. Any other comments from anyone?
I'd
Will we
like to
take
make
a
a
vote?
comment.
Sure.
I also think this is an interesting project, and I have high hopes for it going well and maybe being an opportunity for other projects in town to follow.
Great. Anyone else? Victor or Tim
I don't have
Great.
any additional questions.
Okay, let's take a vote. All in favor of the motion made by Tim to approve with conditions PL 22-17 for 48 Great Neck Road, conditions 1 through 7 and findings 1 through 7. Staff report. Signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. And Karen too?
Yes.
I didn't hear Karen. Okay, 5-0. Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time. Have a great night.
You too. Okay, moving on to the next one is correspondence. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Administrative review of the accessory dwelling units. Everybody have what was sent on that? It's gonna take a second to clear this on my desk here with this plan. Okay, anybody want, Mark, you want to start the discussion on this?
Sure. I provided, based on our last meeting that we discussed this, I generated some modifications to the language that we were looking at. And I can quickly go through at least some of the items that are redlined on here. First of all, a couple of meetings back, we had, and the commission had directed that we look at the gross floor area of the buildings, the principal building, as opposed to looking at net floor area. You wanted to take a look at the actual footprint when we're calculating percentage of the accessory dwelling unit. So what I did was I went back and changed everything that referenced the floor area to building area. They're two different things. It's one thing to be aware of with when we're using building area to calculate a percentage. Building area includes everything within the footprint. So it would include the area of a garage. If it's attached to the house, it includes the area contained underneath the covered porch. So all of that, just to make the commission aware, that's the difference between building area and floor area. Floor area is just a livable floor area within the house. Does not include garages. Does not include covered porches. But I went ahead and changed what was initially floor area, net floor area, gross floor area, and changed it to building area.
But you said we're not including second floor space?
No, that's what I mean. When you're talking about building area, you're just looking at footprint.
Yeah, I don't remember us talking about that change. I don't know if anybody else does. What's the largest number?
The largest number, I don't know, I guess the largest number would be the floor area if you counted second floors on this. That would be the largest number. You know, there's kind of a wash there because net floor area again does not include things such as your garages, doesn't include basements, it doesn't include crawl spaces or porches. So you're looking at the actual living area that's on the assessor records. That's how I've been determining what it is. And the living area from the assessors records, quite honestly, have actually been less in the building area. Now that I think about it, when I'm looking at the data from assessor records, they break out what's living area and what's building area, and pretty much across the board, the building area is a larger square footage than living area. So there's an advantage if someone wants to do an ADU by starting off with a larger footprint in determining the percent size of an ADU. So your ADUs will tend to be bigger than if you use building area than if you use net floor area.
Anybody have any comments on what's before us?
I guess I have a question in reference to square footage. So a two-story house with a first floor, gross first floor area of 1,000 feet would only be counted then as 1,000 feet based on this calculation if we go to building area?
If we go to building area, it would be. It would,
Okay.
because you're only looking at the aerial view and you're only looking at the footprint. You're not taking into account floors. Okay, but as I'm looking at the assessor records, because that's what we're going to be using to base, to start off with our base square footage. The building area has pretty much consistently been larger than the living area that the assessor has. See, like I said, the assessor's got two values or two sizes in his records: living area, building area. Building area has consistently been larger.
Okay.
So when I've used building area to take a look at potential scenarios, the ADUs consistently come out larger than if I use the floor area.
What's your, on the larger parcels, the really large parcels, 10 acres or more, maybe even 5 acres or more, what's the problem with the ability to swap what might be primary and accessory?
You're talking about the potential flip.
Yeah, say there's 1,000 square foot ranch on a 5 acre parcel. And somebody wanted to say, listen, I want to build a 2,000 square foot house and might take my 1,000 square foot house as the accessory.
Yep.
What's the?
I think as long as that, yeah, I think as long as that 1,000 square foot house still, becomes the 50%, no more than 50% of your new house in terms of square footage. I don't think there's an issue with that.
Okay, well, because we had talked last time and it's, well, at some point then the accessory doesn't become accessory anymore. But what about if it was flipped? Then it could.
Right.
And on the larger parcels, to me, I don't, doesn't bother me at all to have something like that on 10 acres or even 5 acres if
someone's willing to, if someone is willing to build a 2,000 square foot house so they can make their 1,000 square foot existing house accessory. I don't think there's wrong with that. As long as the numbers still meet the requirements in the regs.
Okay.
Question on that point, Greg. If the new construction were in back, away from the road, further back than what the house that would become the ADU, does that become non-conforming? Would you have to have some special rules for that, Mark?
If the new house is built behind the existing structure?
Yeah, because then the existing structure would be the ADU in the front yard.
Mm-hmm. Well, at this point, we are allowing ADUs in the front yard, provided they don't encroach any closer than the front yard setback of the zone district.
Okay, then you're good.
Mm-hmm. Right. So we would be conforming.
So I'm looking at my notes from our last meeting, and I thought in the 5 to 10 acre and the 10+ acres that we had changed less to greater. Did I not write that down correctly? In the new notes, it says less, the 40% or less.
Mm-hmm.
But I thought we had talked about changing less to greater, because if 40% of a 1,000 square foot house and you have to take the less measurement. I thought we went with greater.
Yeah, and I don't know what, I don't remember necessarily, Karen, what it was, but I don't like the less, so I do like the greater.
I think we had said 50% or 1,500 square feet, whichever is greater on the 5 to 10, and 50% or 1,800 for the 10 acre, and whichever is greater. Because we had the guy who only had the 1,000 square foot house, and he didn't want to build a 500 square foot house, which would have been 50%, right?
Yeah, the gentleman in the audience, right.
Because he was saying, like, I got a tiny house on a large piece of land, and with this being written as less, then I can only build like a 500 square foot house. And I think we had changed both of them to greater to accommodate that kind of a situation.
Okay.
Where people don't, if they had a 5,000 square foot house, then it was, 50% or 1,800 them from building a 10,000 square foot house.
Okay. I can change that.
Well, what is, my goal is to make this as advantageous as possible for people to be able to use it. However we think we can do that, in my opinion, would be the way to go.
Okay. So,
Except for one thing. In 3.36.1.4, you're allowed to have an ADU higher than the house. Got a lot of background noise. If we can.
in 33614B, right?
Yeah.
You can have, what I did is that I put that greater in there to account for any houses that might actually be less than 20 feet high. So that, you may have some situations where there might be a ranch that's less than 20 feet tall. Okay, so we would still be able to allow an accessory, the detached accessory dwelling unit up to 20 feet. I mean, you're not going to get a ranch that's going to be like 10 feet, or it's going to be somewhere around 20 feet. I just wanted to accommodate those to account for any principal structures that are less than 20 feet tall. So that's why I have in here that newly constructed detached ADUs, the height cannot exceed the principal or 20 feet, whichever is greater.
Right, that's what you have there, right? So new construction,
Yep.
You can build more, but on the next B, it's whatever is less, and those are buildings that are already there.
Those are buildings that are already existing. And the reason I have the less in there is the fact that these are already garages, sheds. They've been accessory dwelling units since they've been constructed. I'm sorry, accessory buildings since they've been constructed, not used as dwellings. So, they've been there. They've been associated as accessory buildings. The neighbors have seen these as accessory buildings and been used as such. And now if you're going to turn them into a dwelling unit, that's where you don't want to go higher than the house. You don't want to go up higher than 20 feet on these. That was my interpretation of this.
No, right, but if the house was less than 20, they wouldn't be able to use it.
If it was not conforming.
Yeah, somebody who already has a dwelling, a building there, in that same scenario, wouldn't be able to use it.
If their house was less than 20 feet tall.
Yeah, if it was a ranch. But if you built it new, you could build it higher. If you had it already existing there, you wouldn't be able to use it. That was my confusion. The same situation one's greater, one's less.
Right.
I would say move the second one to greater as well then.
So
So
I
you-
kind of have a problem with that 1.5B. I live next door to a non-conforming structure that is within 5 feet of my property line. And it really scares me to think that that person could increase the part of the building that's non-conforming to 20 feet, right, within 5 feet of my property line. I find that to be really intimidating. And I just wonder if the better way to go here is to not allow for the part of the building that is non-conforming to become more non-conforming effectively by allowing it to go up at all. I mean, I guess I'd like to see the language to be written such that the portion of a non-conforming building that is going to be used as a ADU, the part that is in the non-conforming area cannot be changed. So they could add on in a conforming space, they could go up in a conforming space, but they should not be allowed to make a non-conforming structure enlarged in the non-conforming area.
Well, I think we touch on that, except for the height. In that same section, so that section B, that any dimension or bulk of that portion of the structure which is non-conforming. Okay, I'm sorry, let me back up. No increase in the area, dimension, or bulk of that portion of the structure which is non-conforming shall be permitted. So
I agree with you, and I like that language, Mark. I just would like to see increasing the height in the non-conforming area to not be allowed either. So if it's a 15-foot setback and someone has to go in 5 feet further away to before they could go up to 20 feet, I think that's a more fair and equitable solution for both that homeowner and for the abutting neighbors.
okay, I think, okay,
I
along,
mean,
yeah,
a 20-foot structure, just a few feet from your property line is pretty intimidating.
yep. Well, if we could do that. Currently, our regulations allow an increase in height of non-conforming structures. Currently, even without these new regs, there's language currently in our regulations that allow a non-conforming portion of a structure, if it's too close to a property line, to go up and become and still meet the height requirements for the zone district that is situated in. So we allow that now.
For me, that's really troubling, and maybe that's something else that we ought to revisit at some point.
I'll just add to that there are some state court decisions that say that that's allowable even independent of our regulations.
Yeah, Tim, can you just elaborate that on what exactly says that what is allowable?
That vertical expansion within the same footprint of a non-conforming structure. There are some at least trial court. I'm not sure if there are appellate decisions, but there are trial court decisions at least that say that that's allowable under Connecticut state law, that you can vertically expand a non-conforming structure, up to a certain point, the way Mark was talking about.
Yep.
Does that mean that Waterford could not be more restrictive? I wouldn't think so.
Well, I think Tim, I think Tim was saying that despite whatever the town says, the state law says that you can do it.
I mean, the state law says that we can have a cannabis sales in our town too, but we're deciding not to. I mean, I'm not exactly following when you can and when you can't, or when you have to and when you don't have to follow state rules.
I think the difference there is that with the cannabis sales, there was a state statute that was passed that specifically gave us the authority to prohibit it. And we chose to exercise that authority.
I mean, at some point, Bert, it's sometimes if the state is restricting something, they can allow the towns to further restrict it. But in this case, the state is granting something, allowing you to build up. And so I don't think they're going to let the town, or at least Tim saying that doesn't believe that the town can restrict it.
Well, I guess the town can certainly determine how much up is. And I'll tell you, standing next to a garage with a peak that's probably 10 feet right now and realizing that it could be double is just a scary thought for me. And I don't know, maybe other people don't have non-conforming structures next to them, but I feel it.
Well, currently, if that's an accessory structure, it can go up to 15 feet. That's our maximum height for accessory buildings. So if it's 10 feet now, the neighbor can, if they wanted to, add an additional 5 feet.
So if 5 is our max, I would ask that we consider making 15 feet be the max allowed increase in elevation for the part of the building that's non-conforming.
Well, I think part of the discussion last time had to deal with the floodplain, and that's why we were at 20, because some properties have to factor that in when they're building, so they need that extra 5 feet.
Right. Yeah.
So again, there has to be a way to accommodate floodplain situations that don't force non-floodplain situations to have to be victimized either.
Well, we had a letter from, I guess, the Duns that was addressing this floodplain issue, and if I'm reading it correctly, they're suggesting that 17.5 feet might be a good place to land because it's enough, according to their calculations, to allow for a small sleeping loft over living space. I don't know what everyone else thinks about that, but maybe, if they can go up to 15 now and maybe some of us are uncomfortable with the 20 feet, maybe that 17.5 feet might be a good middle ground.
Well, one thing to keep in mind is that when we're in a floodplain situation, the actual height is if the structure is in a floodplain, the height of that structure starts not at the ground. Okay, it starts at actually 2 feet above the base flood elevation. Okay, we've incorporated that into our floodplain regs where the height starts there. So, if we're in a floodplain, from the ground, in a situation where someone has, let's say 5 feet of freeboard, okay, before the top of the base flood elevation, then you can add another 2 feet. At 7 feet, you start at 0 for your height, of your structure, right at that 7-foot line. And everything underneath that is non-livable anyway, because you're in a flood zone. I'm not sure whether that letter took into account the fact that they have that ability with that additional freeboard within the flood zone.
That's a good point.
So I think we have a couple of issues and we gotta just try to resolve it. We have either gross floor or building area, or either of them, and let the homeowner pick which one, because I think every situation is going to be a little different. So they can pick however they want to calculate it. Because sometimes, aren't we thinking that the building should just be smaller than the house, no matter what it is? It's a look kind of thing. So if you have a 2,000 square foot house with a 3-car garage, it's going to look pretty big. So let them use whatever space they want, because the floor area might not be big, but if they have a second story, I don't know. I would soon let them pick either one that they want, and then be able to flip the accessory to the primary and primary to accessory. Those are two things I'd like to add, but I'd like to see how everybody feels on all the issues that are out there, including the 20-foot height that Bert was talking about. And we got to decide which way to go, because we've been talking about these for a long time, and be nice to get it right, but nice to move it along as well. And then I think on the chart, I think I'd rather go back to greater, as Karen was saying, than less.
Okay. Okay, for both of those size categories?
I
Greater,
think
5 to 10, greater for the 10 plus.
I think so.
Okay. Do the
Because one of the problems on that is, if you have a large piece of land, you could just attach it to the house and build 5,000 square feet if you wanted to, right? Because it'd be attached, so you could just call it an addition. If it's detached, then you're all of a sudden limited to something a lot smaller on a huge piece of land. So I'm okay with the bigger piece, the bigger ADU.
Okay. Okay. We're staying with the 50%. Still, right?
So you'd have to, yeah, so you could get a 2,000 square foot house.
Yep.
The only way you'd be limited by the percentage is if you have over 4,000 square feet.
Yep. Okay. Yep. Okay, and then stay with the also stay with the 1,800 and the 2,000 square feet.
Yeah, but so what's the first one? It says underline 5, but the 4 is not crossed out. So it's,
Yeah, because initially it was 40%.
right. But so now we're doing 50. So the 4's got to be crossed out, right?
We're doing 50 across the board, no
Yeah.
matter the size of the lot. It's 50%.
Anybody have any comments on those? Tim, Vic?
That change sounds good.
Victor or Tim? The other Tim?
That works for me, Greg.
Okay. How about Tim or Karen? I think Karen already said that's what she was looking for anyway, right?
And I would agree with Karen's prior statement on the 50%, I think is good for all of them. And if we were to change that to greater on the 10 plus, it would still put a limit of 2,000 square feet, but it would give some leeway by using greater instead of less.
Okay. How about the idea? So how about the idea of flipping, the ability to flip the two? Anybody have any comments on that?
I think that actually makes a lot of sense, especially for, some of these bigger pieces of property where you have that ability to really build something bigger. I think that's a good idea.
Okay. I don't know where would we incorporate that, Mark?
Well, I don't think we would have to. As long as we say greater, You know, we don't have to specifically call out the flip. It's just gonna happen. So I think if we use whichever is greater in there, I don't think at that point, it automatically flips.
No, we're talking about, we're talking about 50 or 2,000, whichever is greater.
Oh,
We're talking about the ability to flip the primary to accessory and accessory to primary.
Mhm.
I think that, I don't know about you, Tim, but I'd like to see that spelled out to eliminate any confusion.
Yeah, I think that makes sense. Just, 20
So the
years from now when we're not here,
Right.
if some
Gonna-
question comes up there.
It'll result in 2 lawyers getting paid somewhere. We can eliminate that right now if we just kind of put the ability to determine the primary and accessory is left to the property owner. Then the other one issue or 2 more issues are either the gross floor area or the building, or either. And the reason why I guess I don't, where I would say either, is because I'm having a tough time visualizing exactly from a practical standpoint what they would be. I'm thinking of my house right here. I have a garage, but I also have other floors, which I wouldn't want to lose that space if I was calculating it. But I could think of other houses that are maybe squattier and longer that they don't really care about the second floor. They would want the building area. So I think it depends on what kind of house you have.
I think it's kind of, I don't know, the way I'm approaching it from my perspective, okay, in trying to draft regulations, I'm kind of worried about putting too much flexibility in allowing, if we're establishing some guidance and some standards here, I think I'm a little wary of putting too much flexibility in allowing a property owner or homeowner to decide which route that they want to go when it's not clearly set in the regulations what direction it needs to go in. That's just from my perspective.
Well,
Oh.
could we use the greater language with that? Like we're doing with the other stuff? Say the gross or the building, whichever is greater. So you're taking the choice kind of away from them, but you're giving them the bigger number.
Yeah, and Mark doesn't like it, but
Greg likes it.
I do like it. I think if we're gonna do it, let's let people be able to build it. I mean, our whole thing is having more choices in housing, and then we want to try to restrict some of them. So I don't know. And I'm in favor because I think there are 2 separate types of houses. There are large ranches, and then there's taller houses. There's vertical houses and there's horizontal houses, and I think the numbers are different.
I could take a look, see, but I, like I said, I've been consistently finding that the larger numbers in square footage come from the building area as opposed to the living area of the house. Your building footprint's larger.
Would it factor in? I mean, we talked about this last time where the ADU has to fit on the lot.
Oh,
So
yeah.
if you've got a tall, skinny house, that means you probably have a smaller lot to begin with, or they would have built a bigger footprint
Sure.
first floor, right?
Right.
I mean, isn't the land going to dictate sort of what people can do
Oh,
as well?
absolutely. Yeah, right. Absolutely. I mean, we're just looking at strictly building size, but definitely the lot area, the location on the lot, there's a lot of other limiting factors that are going to determine even whether or not someone can even construct one on their property. I get that. Yeah.
Mark, is this language also going to apply to the ADU itself when we measure square footage for the ADU? how is the square footage for that going to be calculated?
The square footage for the ADU,
Mm-hmm.
square footage for the ADU will be calculated just based on the, well, if we're looking at building area, it's just based on the square footage, building area of the principal structure. And then your ADU, the maximum size, you don't have to go up to the maximum, but the maximum size established for your ADU is just based off the building area of the principal structure or the house, the existing house.
No, but I think like Tim's asking, what's the size of the ADU? How is that based?
Say that again?
How is the size, and correct me if I'm wrong, Tim, but how is the size of the ADU calculated? The same way?
That would be the building area of the ADU as well, if that's what you mean. Size of the ADU is calculated based upon the size of the principal structure.
Right, but I think what they're saying is if you built a 2-story ADU, would you only count the square footage on the first floor, or would you incorporate the sleeping loft or whatnot as, is it the living square footage or is it the footprint square footage for the ADU calculation?
Yeah, if we're going, I think what we're doing, we're going footprint to footprint. So it's the building area, the footprint of the structure, of the principal structure, determines the footprint, maximum size footprint of the ADU. What you do inside the ADU, if you put 2 floors in your ADU, if you can fit them in there, doesn't matter because we're looking at building area, footprint.
So the ADU could technically be bigger because it's got 2 floors or it's got a loft or something than the footprint. Right? If I were building something for my mom, say, and we were restricted to 800 feet, the base floor could be 800 feet, but I could put like a loft with another 200 feet, but that wouldn't be included in the number.
That would not be included in the number. Will be just
So really she'd be getting 1,000 feet, but
yeah, what's
it would be
inside the building, however you divvy that
Configure.
up and work that out, is inside the building. You know, if we stick with building area, that's all that we're talking about is the footprint.
So the same thing would happen with if it had a basement too then. Or storage, right? It would just be footprint.
If we're just talking about building area, that's right. That's right.
So why aren't we talking about square footage?
Why are we talking about square footage? What do you mean?
We're just talking about square footage of living area. Or square footage of the building. Why?
Right, we initially started off by square footage of the square footage of living area is how we initially started this whole thing. So square footage of the living area was your ADU, the maximum size of your ADU, square footage living area of the ADU would be related to the square footage of the building, square footage of the living area of your principal building. That's how we initially started. But then, as you guys were discussing it more, you wanted to really take a look at the building area, the square footage of the footprint. Regardless of how it was divided up inside the house, regardless of how the ADU was going to be divided up, you just wanted to focus on the building area, square footage of the footprint. And that's what I attempted to capture here in these latest revisions, is to just talk about footprint to footprint.
I'll be honest. I don't remember that. I don't remember the changeover. I just don't remember it.
Okay. I think, again, it was, you didn't care about the inside. You wanted to make sure that what it looked like on the outside was going to match or be, within accessory to what the principal building looked on the outside.
But I think what you're saying is that you're getting more square footage in your ADU by doing this footprint potentially,
Yes,
because you can go up and you can create more space.
sure, right. Yeah, because.
So if we're looking to give people the biggest number, this might be an opportunity for that.
Correct, change from net floor area to building area. I went and calculated the differences. Okay, I used net floor area from the assessor records and applied these, the 50% standard. And then I went back and did the same thing with building area. And pretty consistently, your ADUs came out larger when we used the building areas calculation, as opposed to using the net floor area. So they were allowed larger ADUs using building area of the principal structure, the footprint.
I don't know. I personally don't like the building area, the footprint, because I think it favors one style house over another.
It would also eliminate a lot of them with an addition of a garage or something to an ADU, because you'd lose livable area since the garage is now calculated into square footage. The current reg that the town's been under since 13 that didn't account for that. It was net floor area, gross floor area of the living portion.
So how are we going to calculate this? I'm just going to throw it out there to see who agrees, who disagrees. Either gross floor area or building area. Gross floor area, Mark, how are you going to define gross floor area? So everyone knows.
Yep. Generally the gross floor area is all the living area that the assessor, well, the gross floor area does not include, does not include basements, does not include porches, covered porches, does not include garages. Okay, so everything else inside your house, your living area, is what your gross floor area is.
Includes the second floor.
Including second floor. It's
Okay.
whatever the assessor has established, and they have it down, they go out and they measure it, and it's floor by floor. And that's is then totaled up, and that's your total gross floor area.
Okay, so that's the first one.
Right.
Second one is building area. What's the building area?
The building area is the actual footprint as you're looking down on the structure. It's the square footage that's taken up by the footprint of the house.
Okay.
That's it. Doesn't take into account floors, but it does take into account garages and covered porches.
Right. Okay. So there's gross floor area, there's building area, or there's either. Those are the three choices. I'm for either. What does everyone else think?
I think the general person in town is maybe more familiar with the gross floor. You talk to somebody, you say, "Oh, how big's your house?" They say, "Oh, it's 2,000 square feet." And they have no idea what the dimension, the footprint floor area is.
Mhm.
So when they go to read these and they're like, "Okay, I can use 50%, they're going to think, "Oh, I can 50% of my 2,000 square feet." They're not going to know like, "Oh, my house is technically, if I add the garage in and this," they're not going to know that stuff. I think gross floor for the average person reading these is going to be an easier number.
Okay. Tim and Vic.
Yeah. I guess, yeah, I hear what everybody's saying about wanting to offer the most we can to people. And I guess I don't completely understand why it works out this way, but I have faith in Mark, and he's telling us that using the building area in most cases is going to result in offering a bigger ADU to people. And I guess I would have, well, I like the idea of the letting people pick the either one, whichever one they want, whichever is going to be bigger in their situation. I also want to make something that's not unworkable for our staff, since they'll be the ones issuing these permits. And I think we've given, with some of these other changes, we've built in some flexibility in other places. So I think I'd be happy to go with building area, just since it, in most cases, it sounds like it's going to produce the bigger ADU.
Tim and Vic?
I would like to see the gross floor area, just to keep it clean, and then also not to start adding garages to this whole mix.
Okay. If I had to pick, I said either, so if I had to pick one, I'm probably for gross floor area too. That's the square footage. So Vic, where are you?
I will be on gross floor area as well.
Okay. Bert?
I agree. Gross floor area.
Okay. So in this previous thing, Mike, you had net floor area. What's the difference between gross floor area and net floor area?
Gross floor area is actually measured from the outside of the walls. In net floor area doesn't take into account the walls.
Okay, so
net floor area was what we had previously.
Okay, so gross floor area.
I would stick with net floor area. That's how you can measure. You're measuring from wall to wall inside the house. Gross floor area includes the outside walls. So, I mean, it gets down to inches, but you're talking maybe 8-inch thick walls. By the time you get all the, all your joists up and everything else,
But gross floor area is the measurement that the assessor uses.
The assessor uses what's called livable floor area. And that's from the inside. He doesn't measure. They measure from the inside. This is when the statute came down from Hartford, that's what they said. It was net floor area, that's all they used. This is the same as what the assessor has on his in his database.
Okay, well, on the assessor card, they measure the footprint of the outside of the building.
Right, that gives you your, right, but we're talking about.
If you have a 40 by 20 house, it's 800 square feet.
Right. That's your building area, right? We just switched to measuring the living area inside the house. We're not using footprint anymore, right?
I agree, but we're gonna have town staff go out and measure the inside of the houses?
Well, no. What they're going to do is provide us the measurements. Like the applicant will be providing the floor plans and the measurements to staff.
Okay, I'm in favor of gross floor, so I don't know, that's which.
Well, yeah, I mean, we could.
Take what's on the assessor's card, your 40 by 20, 800, that's what it is. I don't know what we all mentioned gross except for Tim. Is that everybody still on gross?
Okay, I can keep that, and then
Well, I just want to make sure everybody's on that part. So
we will keep that, and then we can use, because we're going to need backup information anyway. So we'll be taking the backup information from the assessor records anyway. Whatever they provide, the applicant provides us, we're going to need to verify anyway in the assessor records.
okay, okay. So the language here say gross floor.
That's right. Wherever it said building area, I'll change it to gross floor.
Okay. And then the one other thing is the 20 foot. which we determined that, according to Tim, that we shouldn't change that, right? I'm good not changing it. Tim's good with not changing it, right?
On the 20-foot.
No, Tim Bleasdale, actually, I was asking, but
Yeah, I'm fine with the 20-foot.
Tim Condorino,
Yes, I'm good with that.
okay. Karen, Vic,
I'm good with that as well.
I'm good with 20.
okay, and Bert, you're not, right?
Correct.
Right.
I could go with 15. I don't, 20, I don't like.
So we have gross floor area, we have able to flip the primary accessory, the 20, the greater in the chart.
Yep.
In both charts and to the 50, right? This might be the last go around on it when they get it to us.
I hope so.
I think we do too. It's just want to try to advantageous and right, so. Okay, so we'll address that the next time Mark gets that to us. Anything else on that? We move to the next item. Okay, item number 6, correspondence.
We don't have it.
Anything?
No.
Okay, item number 7, commission business. Anything you need to update us on?
We're looking for a CO on the first building up here on Willits Avenue, the apartments that are going up. They're looking for a CO. We are also the gas station, if you've noticed, in front of Aldi's is not operating now. I mean, they shut it down. They will be in front of us with a site plan. We're anticipating it's going to be received on the 20th next week. Of course, we don't have a meeting, but it gets received anyway. And so we will be scheduling that soon.
What's that going to be for?
They're actually tearing it down, creating another, just redoing the whole gas station.
Oh.
New building, canopy over the pumps, whole new design.
Okay.
On that.
Anything else to note?
New planning director starts on Monday.
Okay.
We hired a new planning director. He's a resident of Waterford. He's coming from Glastonbury. He's a planner in Glastonbury. Had 10 years experience in Hartford prior to Glastonbury, and I believe he has 5 to 6 years in Glastonbury. Grew up in Waterford, went to the schools here, lives here, and he's going to be starting Monday for us.
Great. Good. Well, you did an excellent job in the interim.
Thanks. A lot of work, man. I'm tired.
I bet. All right. Anything else anybody has? Okay. Item number 8, adjournment.
I'll move that we adjourn.
I'll second.
Motion made, seconded to adjourn. All in favor?
Aye.
Hey,
Aye. Have a nice holiday, everyone.
Okay,
Happy
everybody.
holidays, everybody.
Holidays, everybody.
have a good night.
Everybody afterwards.
Night.
Take care.